to have community in their lives.
What, it was the 70s, I guess, eh?
In the early 70s in Denmark, some people were looking for a better way of living.
I think they were looking for more community.
Sort of more efficient. They were starting to find that, you know, you're a stranger in your neighborhood, that type of thing.
Immigrated to the U.S. and North America, Canada in the probably mostly 90s, 80s and 90s.
Some people who went to school over there and studied co-housing came back to North America and decided that this was an excellent model for housing and community in North America. So they wrote a book about it and have become the gurus.
McCannett and Durrett wrote the book Cohousing. They visited Denmark and they brought it to North America.
We were involved for 3 years before move-in, figuring out what the shape of the building was going to be, how many units were going to be in it, and down to the final design and so on.
We designed 1, 2, 3, and 4 bedroom houses. And each of the houses, especially this one, which is the 2-bedroom, was made to be expandable.
Our units are not large on the scale which many people are accustomed to in our society today.
We've built the 2 bedrooms with what we call attic trusses, so that they can be broken up. You can get up into the attic trusses and add 1 or even 2 bedrooms.
And we've been very creative, some of us, about expanding possible living spaces. So we have from what? 680 square feet,
yeah,
all the way up
to maybe
1,700 square feet for 4-bedroom homes.
We have stacked townhouses, we have just 3-story townhouses that are ground to roof, and we have apartments that are, it's a 4-level apartment building.
Some of the homes, like mine, are all on 1 floor. At my stage of life, I didn't want to be looking at climbing a lot of stairs. I can now, but I may not be able to in 10 years from now.
We've got a lot of quality built into this building that's beyond the surface, you know, sort of deep down, you know, the kind of stuff you care about, roofs that don't leak and, you know, all that kind of thing. Because we just made sure, you know, as we were designing it, that we were going to get something we could live with.
They're south-facing, and they have sloped roofs that are south-facing, so they'll take panels, solar panels for domestic hot water.
And we also need to make the houses situated in such a way that we see our neighbors, that we can greet our neighbors as they go by, and that it's easy to see people and get to people.
It's really the heart of the community.
The common house is a space that enables the community parts of co-housing.
The theory being that you don't need as much extra space inside your unit because when you need more, you go use the common house.
Well, it's a very busy place. We have a wonderful kitchen, which is big enough for half a dozen people to be preparing a meal in at one time.
I think one of the best things about the common house is the opportunity for us to gather on special occasions, for us to have meals there at least 2 or 3 times a week.
If I want to have a birthday party and I can't quite pull together the party and cleaning my whole house and hosting 7 kids and their parents, that the common house just in a personal, beautiful, perfectly free way, I can host a really great birthday party.
It allows us to have all sorts of experiences and interaction with each other that we wouldn't have, you know, if we didn't have that common space.
We have the guest room. We have a meeting room where people can sort of meet in a more professional way with someone. And then there's the more homey environment of the common house.
We have performances, talent nights, and so on. We have a stage. We have an in-house band.
I've had yoga teachers come and teach in the multipurpose room.
We have movie nights.
It's where I've taken Pilates, yoga, and belly dancing.
And the best thing is that on a rainy day, my kids are like out of control, but we can't go somewhere because it's just a little bit too rainy. We can go in there and paint, do Play-Doh, turn somersaults, put some mats down, and it's just that little pressure valve. Changes everything.
I think one of the best things is when I, maybe on a cold winter night, have gone to get the ferry at 5:30, and I come back here and it's dark and it's cold and the lights are on in the common house, and I can just run in there and put my $5 down and have a wonderful dinner with my neighbors.
The real difference in co-housing is that it's a community.
One of the most important things to me is that I know all these people here.
Our attempt was to make it attractive to lots of different kinds of people. So we have single women, single men, some working, some not. We have families of various, some are stay-at-home moms and some are full-time working moms.
I think that's extremely healthy for us to not have a monoculture like that, and just the interaction between the ages and between the different ethnic groups here as well.
When I came here, it just felt like I came home, like I'd found my tribe.
The mix is huge. Everything from some people are born here to, I think the oldest person in this unit has been my mother, who is 91.
Yeah, I think that's another cool thing about co-housing, is that there's people in sort of every age group here, all the way from infants to elders, and everywhere in between you can find here, which is cool.
And I love the kids. I wouldn't have that much exposure to kids if I wasn't living here. And it was really important for me when my wife and I decided to move in here, that there were enough kids to provide that kind of atmosphere.
And what I love about here is that Ethan or Alex or any of the kids or Amber can talk to anybody else just like a person.
I've come to kind of appreciate in co-housing in particular, and in particular maybe the design of Windsong, but I think that's true for any co-housing complex I'm imagining, is we know our neighbors more than people living in single-family homes.
I never lived in community in my life. I lived in a family where hardly anybody came there except my aunt, and I always knew I was looking for something else, but I had never experienced it. I think a lot of people feel that. They feel this kind of essential loneliness or separation, and I think this kind of a community can really help them.
Different people have specialties in different areas. Some people are really great with computers. Some people are great at fixing cars. So we kind of have this pool of knowledge that we share with each other.
We share a lot of things. Like if I would have been at another house that wasn't co-housing, I wouldn't have like a trampoline, a ton of kids to play with, a big playroom, all this other stuff.
Living with people that I know and socialize with to some extent. Now that doesn't mean that one's whole social life does or should take place within co-housing. That doesn't happen at all. Everybody has their own life and their own activities.
Certainly, some of the concerns were that if you live in a place like this on top of each other, you wouldn't have privacy. That's certainly not been my experience. We don't flush people out of their homes. If they want to hide for 6 months at a time, it's totally possible to do that. But if you wanted to interact, it's right outside your door.
Our daughter's grown up here. She was 2 when we came, and she's 14 now. So part of it for us, the impetus was, to not be a lonely, isolated nuclear family where you have to drive your kid to somebody else's house to play with them, that sort of thing. And she's really grown up with an extended family here.
If you want to play with your neighbor, instead of going to their backyard or your backyard, you could just play in the middle. So you can almost always find somebody out in the courtyard you can talk to or play with, depending on the age.
I would say that we're an environmentally aware group of people, and that we tried right from the construction stage to do whatever we could to do the right thing environmentally and sustainably.
The other thing that's been really active here is car sharing. So Sean needs the car, he wants to go kayaking, I'm here with 2 kids, need to go shopping or whatever. It's really easy to share.
We've then covenanted a very high percentage of open land, which we will not touch, but it has wildlife habitat value.
And we have now one of the few remaining green spaces as Walnut Grove.
We need these high efficiency boilers, but they're even more efficient because the water that comes into them is preheated by solar heat.
Because we developed it for ourselves, we made decisions in the development process that increased the cost of construction, which a developer wouldn't normally do, but decreased the consumption of energy once we moved in.
And we have one woodworking shop for 31 homes as opposed to 31 woodworking shops, and the list goes on.
The biggest benefit is that if I want to be alone, I just can be alone. And if I want company, I just walk downstairs.
Neither of us are extremely gregarious people, but whenever we really want to go and talk to somebody about something trifling or something serious, people are there.
I am exceptionally lucky because my daughter and son-in-law and 2 grandchildren live here. So that's a very special benefit for me.
One thing that's great about it is that your friends live 100 paces away. You can just go and visit your friends without having to make arrangements or anything, and you don't have to drive over to your friend's place or even walk any considerable length of time. You can they're right there.
We find that the kids here do well. A lot of them go to the Langley Fine Arts School, and they do well in speaking and performing because they're very used to being in community, and often they're up on stage ever since they're 2 years old.
When I first came to initial co-housing meetings, I just had a sense that some of the people here were really up to something different and view the world differently than I did, and I wanted to grow and I wanted to change because I think there were parts of my life that I wasn't too happy about, but wasn't sure how to shift it. But I had a sense that if I hung out with these people doing this project together and living together, that I could start to figure out how to make my life shift. And I think I've seen other people here, they've developed businesses, a lot of it from support from other people because they get feedback again, right? And then you have translation of skills, skill sets that you don't have, business mindsets that you might not have, you get to talk to people. So it's a lot of networking.
It makes parenting easier. Babysitting is a non-issue, and trying to find things your kid can do with other kids is, if you have a certain mass of kids, it's great.
It comes in handy in odd little ways too, in that when there's retired people here, for example, there's always somebody here during the day.
Children, we've been told that at the local fine arts school, the children are mediators in conflicts in the playground. I mean, they're learning consensus here too, and it's amazing with all the children we've got living here how well they play together. I like being around people of like mind. I found that personally I've learnt a lot just from my neighbours that I wouldn't normally have the benefit of if I lived in a traditional residential neighbourhood.
The first benefit, I would say, is living with a wonderful group of people.
And there are also deeper levels that you can enter into co-housing where you can have a much more meaningful relationships with people and actually have an intention of working out conflicts and deepening the relationships. Research says that living in community is very good for physical health, mental health, community's health too.
My grandchild lives here, and I think it's a wonderful place for children. Very safe. It takes a village to raise a child is very much what goes on here.
We don't have an expectation that we're going to be taken care of by the community, but at the same time there's a lot of willingness and energy for being there for each other.
A lot of it just happens naturally.
Yeah.
So.